One share sunset. You're listening to quiet drama, where stories linger like dusk and speak softly to the heart. Tonight's story begins with a prologue. Find your stillness. The story begins now. Prologue. A place that waits. May closed her eyes and let the wind comb through her hair. She stood at the edge of Sunset Cove, her boots sinking slightly into damp sand. In the distance, waves rolled in slow succession, each one whispering a rhythm older than thought. Overhead, the sky was shifting, dusky pink washing into periwinkle. And beyond the dunes, the tops of wind-bent grasses swayed in agreement with the breeze. The sign at the turnoff had been barely legible. Sunset Cove, population 14, seasonal. The paint had faded to ghost letters, the kind you only see if you already know what you're looking for. That felt about right. May hadn't come here for what was obvious. She came for what lingered just underneath. Her car was parked up the hill, cabin keys tucked in her pocket, but she hadn't gone inside yet. Not quite. Instead, she'd been pulled to the shoreline as if summoned, by the light, the hush, the ache she'd been carrying for months. 3 months ago, she'd packed up half her life. The other half she left behind. Books stacked in unopened boxes, a note to her landlord, and a silence that no longer felt shared. She told friends she needed time, told her sister she needed space, but the truth was simpler. May needed quiet. Not the kind you find in a soundproof room, the kind that meets you outside, unhurried, and holds your hand without asking questions. She walked now along the edge of the beach, toes dragging shallow trails behind her. The cabin, weathered pine, crooked porch light, single shutter hanging slightly askew, waited up the hill. It didn't look like much. That too felt just right. When May finally opened the door, the cabin greeted her not with warmth, but with presence. The air inside was cool and a little stale. Dust floated in angled light. A single table stood by the window. A bookshelf held 3 novels and 1 field guide to coastal birds. The couch sagged in the middle. It all made her heart ache in a good way. She didn't unpack. Not yet. She opened the window instead, let in the sea air, the scent of salt and fir trees. Then she stepped back outside. Down the path, a narrow trail pressed through dune grass, she spotted it. A bench. Weathered wood, facing west. May paused. Something about it struck her as familiar, though she'd never been here before. She walked toward it slowly, as if approaching a person mid-thought. When she reached it, she didn't sit. Not yet. She stood behind the bench and watched the horizon. The sun was beginning its descent, low and generous, spilling gold across the waves. It painted the sand with light. The world grew quieter. Finally, she sat. The bench creaked slightly beneath her, then settled into stillness. May wrapped her hands around her thermos, tea gone cold, and breathed. The kind of breath you don't know you need until it leaves you. A breath from somewhere deeper. The silence wasn't empty. It was textured, layered, carried on the wind, woven through the grass, curled into the shadows. In that moment, May didn't feel healed. She didn't feel whole. She felt honest. The sun continued down, and with it, the day folded softly in on itself. Somewhere behind her, a door creaked on its hinge. Somewhere ahead, the tide whispered secrets to the shore. May smiled faintly, not because she was happy, but because the quiet had finally found her, and she had said yes. Chapter 1. Strangers in Stillness. The bench faced west, paint chipped, legs unsteady, but it held the best view in the park. Each evening around 7 p.m., May returned. She brought her thermos, usually filled with chamomile or mint, and wrapped herself in the evening light as if it were a shawl. The lake never looked the same twice. Some evenings it rippled like silk, lavender and orange colliding softly. Other nights it seemed vast and flat, a pane of pewter glass. On this particular evening, she noticed him, already seated. A man, early 30s, not posing, not slouching, just there, as if he'd been carved from the bench itself. His sketch pad lay open in his lap, but he wasn't drawing, just watching, the way someone watches a fire, with quiet reverence. May slowed. Her body hesitated before her mouth could catch up.
Hope you don't mind.
He turned slightly, not startled, just aware.
It's a bench. Can't claim it.
She smiled, appreciating the answer.
Some people try.
Then they probably need it more than the rest of us.
She sat, not too close, just enough that they shared the same view, the same moment. The sun dipped lower. They watched as the colors began to shift, rose into flame, flame into ash. The kind of light that makes you remember things, or wish you could forget.
You come here often.
Almost every day. Same time. Ritual.
Nice time to be here. No tourists, just birds and silence.
And the occasional stranger.
A brief pause, friendly, not awkward.
I'm May.
Julian. His pencil began to move.
Are you drawing me?
Julian.
Number. Not yet.
Should I pose?
Please don't.
Julian said, smiling. They chuckled. Something about the ease in his voice made her shoulders drop a little. They watched a duck paddle across the lake, its ripples slicing the sunset like a fault line. Somewhere behind them, a child laughed, a distant echo from another part of the park.
You live around here?
Number cabin up the hill, just visiting.
Hiding or healing?
She turned toward him, not offended, just surprised by the accuracy.
Both, maybe.
That's allowed.
He paused, then nodded toward the water.
I used to come here with my brother. Years ago, he passed. Cancer. I moved away. Only recently came back.
I'm sorry.
Me too.
Silence again, but it wasn't empty. May looked down at her hands, fingers wrapped around her thermos. The tea was still warm.
I lost a friend last year. Not family. Not romantic. Just someone who made things make sense.
The ones who do that, they're the hardest to lose.
He didn't say the second part. He didn't need to. The sky darkened further. Gold gave way to indigo. The first star peeked out over the trees.
Same time tomorrow?
Sure. Same bench.
He gathered his things slowly. Before leaving, he tore a page from his sketch pad. It showed the bench, the lake, and two figures, neither detailed, both gazing forward. He handed it to her.
Here, in case I forget how it felt.
You won't.
Chapter 2. What We Don't Say. The next evening came quietly, the kind of quiet that makes the air feel thicker somehow. May walked the path from her cabin to the bench with the familiar thermos cradled in her hands. A new blend tonight, lavender and lemon balm, comforting, if a little melancholic. Julian was already there. He sat just like before, sketch pad open but idle, as if drawing wasn't the point. He looked up when she approached, and for the briefest moment, there was something expectant in his expression. Something just shy of hope.
Evening.
Evening.
She handed him one of the two pastries she'd picked up from the tiny market at the edge of town. He accepted it without a word, but with a grateful nod. They sat in silence, eating, sipping tea. The sun slipped lower in the sky, painting the lake in slow, deliberate strokes.
I drew the duck.
May turned.
What?
Yesterday. The duck. That ripple it made, it split the water like it was undoing something.
He flipped his sketch pad and showed her. A simple, elegant rendering. The bird mid-paddle, the reflection trailing behind it like a shadow caught in motion.
You made it look poetic.
Sometimes, I think that's all drawing is. Showing someone else how something felt.
May nodded, then looked out toward the water again.
I used to write.
Used to?
I stopped when my friend died. She was the first person who made me believe my words mattered. After that, I didn't want to write something she'd never read.
Julian didn't respond right away. He turned a page in his sketchbook and began a new sketch. Slow, deliberate movements.
What did you write?
Letters, stories, poems, half-finished things. She used to say I wrote like I was whispering to someone who might never answer.
That's not a bad thing.
She considered that. Let it settle.
I still write letters, but I don't send them. I have a box full. To her, to people I don't talk to anymore, to versions of myself I don't recognize.
I think sketches are my letters. Even if no one sees them, there's still me on the page.
They sat for a long moment, breathing in the hush.
Why do you come here?
Julian paused. A long pause.
Because silence remembers.
May turned to him, brow slightly furrowed.
This bench, the lake, the time of day, it all remembers. Like when I'm here, I don't have to explain myself. The silence already knows.
I think I came here to forget. But maybe I stayed because I want to remember the right things.
And forget the noise.
May nodded.
The noise is exhausting.
Julian reached into his bag and handed her a folded piece of paper. Another sketch. This time the bench. One figure sitting, one just arriving.
You've already started a series.
Maybe.
Do I get royalties?
You get tea and pastries. That's the deal.
She laughed, the sound soft and genuine. They sat until the stars began to show. May traced constellations with her eyes, letting her thoughts wander.
You ever wonder if the people we lose find new ways to visit us? Through strangers? Through silence?
All the time.
I sometimes think my friend would have loved this place. She hated crowds. She used to say the best conversations happened without words.
Julian didn't answer with words. He reached for his sketch pad again. Drew in the quiet. His pencil moved with ease, with trust. When he showed her, it was a small, spare image. 2 cups on a bench. One full, one steaming. No people, just presence. May touched the corner of the page.
That's what she would have drawn.
The lake whispered. The breeze turned cool. They stood slowly, as if not to startle the night.
Same time?
Same bench.
Chapter 3. The world expands. By the third evening, the air had shifted. There was something new in it. Stillness, yes, but also the unspoken energy of a habit forming. May realized it as she poured tea into 2 cups instead of 1. She no longer asked herself whether Julian would be there. She simply assumed he would. And he was.
Is that cinnamon?
Nutmeg. And something else I can't remember. I call it end of day.
Very poetic.
Better than calling it leftovers in a mug.
They laughed. Julian pulled out a small tin from his bag. Inside were fig Newtons, neatly wrapped in wax paper.
Payment for tea.
They sat in their usual configuration, neither too close nor too far, bodies facing forward, words flowing sideways. The lake shimmered with a copper glow as the sun began its descent. A cool breeze moved through the trees. May could feel it brushing her cheek like breath from an old friend.
I started something today. A big piece.
Of the bench?
Number of you?
He paused, then added,
Not a portrait. Not like that. Just how you sit. How you watch the sky like it might speak.
May was quiet for a moment.
That's fair. I started something too.
Yeah?
Sketching. Trees, mostly. And your hands. Hope you don't mind.
He looked at her, amused.
Are we each other's muses?
Just don't let it go to your head.
They smiled, the kind of smile that folds comfortably into the chest. A jogger passed behind them. A dog barked somewhere far off. Life carrying on quietly around them.
I brought something.
From her bag, May pulled out a small photo album, the kind with plastic sleeves and curling corners.
Old photos. I found it when I was packing for the trip. Thought I left it behind, but it was in the car the whole time.
She flipped it open and pointed.
That's my mom, and me, backyard garden. She used to braid daisy chains in my hair.
Julian leaned closer, careful not to invade.
She looks kind.
She was, and strong. Not in the loud way. In the way she'd sit beside you and say nothing and somehow you'd feel better.
The rarest kind of strong.
Exactly.
She tucked the album away.
My brother used to take photos, mostly film. He'd wait days to see if the shot turned out. Said it made it more honest.
Did you ever model for him?
Only once. We were in Big Sur. Sunset behind us. He told me not to smile. Said he wanted to capture the version of me that only the ocean saw.
Did it work?
Julian nodded slowly.
I think so. I've only ever looked like that once.
They let the silence stretch.
I think this place brings out versions of us we forget exist. The ones who slow down, breathe, listen.
Or just exist without explanation.
The wind shifted. A gust carried the smell of brine and pine needles. May closed her eyes. Let it wash through her.
I used to believe healing had to look like progress, steps forward, lists, fixes.
And now,
Now I think it looks like this: showing up, being still, letting someone see you in the middle of it.
Julian's pencil moved. He didn't look at the page, just let his hand follow the moment. A heron lifted from the water, wings catching gold.
There's a woman here, Nora. She collects driftwood, walks the shore with a red raincoat and a bag that's always half full. I passed her this morning.
I've seen her. She nods like she knows your story.
Maybe she does.
They chuckled, then sat again in peace. The sun had dipped low now, barely a sliver above the tree line.
Do you think you'll go back to where you came from?
I don't know. The question doesn't feel urgent anymore.
Julian folded his sketch pad.
That's the first sign it's working.
They stood without speaking, walked together halfway up the path before parting with a soft smile and a nod. That night, May lit a candle on the cabin's porch. She didn't journal, didn't read, just sat and watched the flames sway in the breeze. A moth circled. The night deepened, and May, for once, didn't need answers. Chapter 4. Edges of Change. The next few evenings passed like turning pages in a well-loved book. May and Julian met at the bench without question. Their greetings became softer, more familiar, an exchanged glance, a quiet nod, the offering of a cup or sketch without explanation. Sunset stitched each day together like thread between thoughts. May brought small things, folded poems, sea glass from her morning walks, a book of short stories she never asked him to return. Julian responded in pencil, sketches of wildflowers, waves crashing against rocks, and one page filled entirely with shades of sky. But by the fifth evening, something had shifted. Julian was already seated when May arrived, but he didn't lift his head. His pencil moved restlessly, pressing harder than usual. His bag sat close beside him.
Hey,
Hey, she sat, waited. The silence wasn't heavy, yet, but it teetered.
tea, orange peel, and rosemary.
He accepted the cup with a grateful smile that didn't quite reach his eyes.
Okay, spill it. What's turning inside your head like that?
Julian stopped sketching, set his pencil down.
I got an email this morning from an arts residency. Lisbon, 6 months.
MAEO. She sipped her tea to give the word room to breathe.
I applied months ago. Didn't think I'd get it. Forgot about it, honestly. But I did. They want me. Starts in 4 weeks.
Lisbon.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
it is. It really is.
He paused.
I didn't expect to meet anyone here. Anyone who'd make staying feel like the harder choice.
May looked out over the lake. The water was calm, still reflecting a sky barely tinted by the coming dusk.
When I came here, I wanted to disappear.
Did you?
I think I softened instead.
They sat, the bench holding their uncertainty.
What is this? Between us?
It's not nothing.
It's not quite something either.
Not yet.
He nodded.
I don't want to ruin it by naming it.
Then don't. Just let it be.
The sun was nearly gone now. A long amber streak hugged the lake's edge. Julian reached into his pocket and pulled out a sketch. A study of May's hands wrapped around her thermos, loose hair catching the wind.
I drew this the first day we met. Finished it this morning.
May took it gently. Her breath caught.
You made me look at peace.
You were?
The silence returned, but this time it pulsed. Not absence, but pressure. The weight of an ending that hadn't begun yet.
You should go.
You think so?
You lit up when you said the word Lisbon. Don't dim that.
But what about this?
She looked at him then. Really looked.
If this matters, it'll still be here.
He exhaled, a shaky, quiet surrender.
Same time tomorrow?
Same bench?
They stood. Didn't hug, didn't kiss. Just stood for a breath longer than usual. Then walked opposite directions. The wind picked up, leaves rustled, and the lake held the last of the light. Chapter 5. If the Bench Remembers. Julian didn't come the next evening. May waited. She showed up at 7 o'clock, thermos warm in her hands, scarf drawn tight against a crisp wind. The bench felt different without him there, larger somehow. The space beside her too open, the silence too still. She poured 2 cups anyway. By 7:30 she finished hers and left the other untouched. She came again the next night, and the night after that. Sunset by sunset she continued the ritual they'd built together, though now it felt more like a vigil than a habit. She didn't text him, didn't ask where he was or when, or if he'd return. It wasn't that she didn't want to, it was that something about their rhythm had never included expectation. Instead, she brought a journal. She wrote letters, some to Julian, some to her mother, one to her younger self.
Dear May, you don't need to become someone new to be someone whole. You just need to sit still long enough to remember who you were before you hurried past it.
Some nights she cried, softly, quietly, the kind of tears that didn't rush or beg to be noticed. Other nights she just listened. One evening, Nora passed by, red coat snapping in the breeze, bag clinking faintly with collected driftwood.
You're the one who watches the sunsets with the sketchbook guy.
Was. Maybe still am, depending.
They always come back, the ones who leave with something unfinished.
She nodded toward the bench.
Places like this, remember.
She kept walking, the sound of her boots fading into the rustle of grass. May stayed. She stayed for 12 days. On the 13th evening, she arrived as usual. Wind stronger than normal, waves more insistent, and there it was, an envelope, tucked neatly under the corner of the bench. Her name written in soft charcoal script. Inside a sketch, the bench, the lake, the sky on the edge of fire. One figure drawn with intimate detail, hair curled by wind, shoulders wrapped in a familiar shawl. On the back,
Sometimes the truest thing we can do is leave space for the light to return. I'll come back, if the bench remembers me. J.
May traced the curve of the pencil strokes. She didn't cry. She smiled. That night she left something too. A sketch of her own, just outlines. The bench, 2 cups, 1 full, 1 steaming. She slid it under the bench. A small offering, an echo, a promise. The next morning, May stood at her cabin window. The fog was lifting, sun catching the tops of the dune grass. She breathed in. It felt easier. In her notebook, she wrote one final entry.
If he returns, I hope the bench remembers how we sat in silence and let it speak. And if he doesn't, I hope it still holds the weight of that hush. Either way, I'm grateful.
She closed the book and poured 1 cup of tea. Just one. Epilogue. Carrying the quiet. May packed slowly. She folded each item with care, not because she was sentimental about sweaters, but because she didn't want to rush. The cabin seemed to sense it too, the way the light came through the window more softly, the way the floorboards creaked with a kind of reluctance. Outside, the wind danced through the dune grass. Gulls circled overhead, their cries distant, weightless. Her final morning in Sunset Cove was bright, but not boastful. The sun offered light without heat, warmth without pressure. May stood on the porch for a long time, hands wrapped around a cup of tea, watching the fog lift from the tops of the trees. She walked the path to the bench one last time. The wood welcomed her with the familiarity of old friends. She sat, closed her eyes, let her breathing fall into rhythm with the tide. No sketches, no tea, no words, just presence. She placed a small envelope on the bench beside her. Inside was a letter, not to Julian, not even to herself, but to whoever might need it next.
If you found this, you're in the right place. Sometimes we don't need answers. We just need a space that holds us until the questions soften. Let the bench hold you. Let the quiet rise.
She didn't sign it. The sun crept higher and the lake glimmered like a thought half remembered. She stood, brushed sand from her jeans, took one last look at the water, and turned to go. Her footsteps on the trail were soft, steady. She didn't feel fixed. She felt found. That was One Shared Sunset, written and produced for Quiet Drama. If this story meant something to you, Take it with you, maybe even share it with someone who needs a little quiet. Subscribe, comment, or pass it along. And until next time, let the silence speak.